Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. You know, I love when you pull back on your experiences life, right? We've had different experiences throughout our life and things that really resonate with us. And I was reading the bio of my guest today, and in his bio, I saw Forbes, and I started thinking back to my days when I was working for Kettle One Vodka. I was the vice president there, and we used to advertise a lot in Forbes. And because we advertised, they sure took good care of us. And I was able to go to Manhattan, New York on many occasions and ride on the Forbes yacht. I mean, talk about a luxurious experience, schmoozing with the best of them, you know. And I don't know if I invited Thomas on the line today because I was living in this memory of Forbes, or he's got an incredible background and a great new book out. So, Thomas, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks very much for having me on the show. And I hope it's the latter, the second reason you mentioned.
Well, you know what? Your new book, Breakthrough, sounds exciting to me, some of the topics. So really, that's what it's about. But, you know, it's fun to look back on some of your memories and pull from them, right? What did you learn in that job or in that experience that you can use today in your everyday business life or personal, you know? So I like to flash back once in a while.
Very good. Yeah. Good. Mm-hmm.
So look, I always ask my guests to give us some background, you know, where you came from, why you do what you do, how you got to the book. You're over in Switzerland getting ready to wrap your day up. So let's hear about you.
All right. Wonderful. Well, look, what brought me to what I'm doing today is my passion for people, and particularly my passion for growth and development in people. My own first and foremost, because everything I do directly depends on where I personally stand in my own growth and development as a person. So I've been working with mostly managers, leaders, executives in organizations worldwide, across cultures for the past around about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't always done that. So before that, I used to work for Swissair, which is the former Swiss national airline.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did there was in my mid-20s, started to become a flight attendant, and then quickly moved up and became an in-flight manager. So what I was doing most of the time at Swissair was leading cabin crew on the international network. And as you can imagine, in a narrow tube flying through the sky with 300 people, you can't go anywhere. You cannot escape. You have to solve problems and issues on the spot. Interpersonal challenges, particularly, because those were the most, not technical challenges or something like that, but interpersonal.
Sure.
Put a bunch of people together in a room and then see what happens. So I learned a lot about myself, about people, about what works, what doesn't work, what solves, what keeps the relationship, what breaks it, etc., etc. And before that, I had a few years of we could say professional disorientation. I didn't know what to do with my life. I started earning my first money cutting people's hair. So I did a 3 years apprenticeship as a hairstylist. And then I ended up working with a circus, touring around, living in a trailer for 1.5 years before I then joined the airline. Now, it sounds a bit colorful and a bit zigzag, but from where I stand today, when I look back, I see the red thread.
Sure.
And the red thread is people. Listening to people is what I was already doing while cutting hair when I was 17, 18 years old. So that's my story in a nutshell.
It's always fun when we've got those colorful backgrounds to pull from.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I teach a lot about soft skills in business, and, you know, soft skills aren't very glamorous when you start digging into it, but when you realize how important they are. And, you know, I think that's just a different definition of what you've talked about are what you can explain, in terms of what you do and how you help people, right? Personal effectiveness, leadership development, most of that comes from soft skills, because they're already, running the computer or, doing their various tasks that they learned how to do, but it's the soft skills where they lack. The question begs me is, what leaders are doing wrong and how do we fix that?
Oh, that's really hitting the bullseye with what you just said.
We're going to jump right in.
The heart of my work. And, I tend not to call them soft skills, because soft skills compared to hard skills for many already sounds like it's less important. Right.
Yeah.
And let's focus on the hard skills, the numbers, the facts, the figures, et cetera, et cetera. And soft skills is what we do and what we develop when we have time left, which we never have anyway. And so it's like, it's very often neglected. So I tend to call them people skills or even essential skills, because they are. They are what makes or breaks the relationships, the team collaboration, the leadership in terms of mobilizing people to go extra miles, et cetera, et cetera. Because in the end of the day, it's always people. It's always people. Paradoxically, though, these essential skills or people skills, if you look at what people are trained in companies and organizations to do a good job, they are the least well trained and developed skills. So everybody's focuses on the technical skills, the subject matter expertise, methodological skills, et cetera, so that people can do a good job. But the people skills are often neglected. So we have and your question was, what do people or what do leaders do wrong and how do we fix it? Well, what many do wrong without bad intentions, in best intentions, is to focus on the facts, the factual level of the work, the technical things, everything I just mentioned. And they don't realize how important the people are and the skills of how you interact with people, so that they are intrinsically motivated to do the job and go beyond if necessary, to go extra miles if necessary, because they feel at the heart of things and not at the periphery. And or if you don't do it well, they just do the bare minimum. They do what is necessary for them to do so they don't get into trouble, but that's it. And worst case, they become quiet quitters. Right? So they are there, they do what I have to do, but don't expect me to go anywhere beyond that.
Yeah, they're done.
And there's so much potential in there. But how can somebody lead like that if they don't know how to? If they're not aware that there's a large field of essential skills to be developed? Among them are emotional intelligence, nonviolent communication, all that kind of things that is so, it opens doors for people when they start applying them, just, a little bit here, a little bit there, step by step. And the nice thing about it is you don't only need that in the job, right? So you improve your emotional intelligence, your authenticity, your communication skills. Guess what? Your family will be happy. Your spouse, your children, everybody will be happy, because it affects everything, right? So there's really a lot of value in there.
By the way, you just corrected my language. I love it. I love that term, essential skills, because you're right. When you say they're soft skills, people do tend to put it off, right? It's not as important. And like you said, it's so critical. There's some other language I saw in your bio here. It's talking about becoming authentic and conscious, right? And I love those words. I especially love authentic, because I think oftentimes we try to be somebody that we're not. I remember when I first started this podcast, the first few shows, I was just myself interviewing people like I've always done. And then I had that really cool guy on, so I was trying to be the cool guy too. And my friend calls me, he's like, Jim, who was that on the radio today? I'm like, that was me. Why? He goes, no, it wasn't you. You were trying to be something that you're not. Go back to you. That's why I listen. And I thought, I've been caught. I stepped away from being my authentic self.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And authenticity, above everything else that I mentioned before, is key. Many managers go to attend some leadership training or course or whatever, where they learn and hope to learn methods and techniques and hints and tips and tricks to better manage. What they often really want is tools to better manipulate people into what they expect from them, right?
Sure.
And again, with no bad intention, right? Managers are measured by the results they generate, by the KPIs, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, they focus on that. But paradoxically, you improve the KPIs and the financial figures and numbers of the company, not by focusing on them, but by focusing on the people.
That's right.
So that's how it works. So coming back to being authentic. Of course, being authentic means being genuine, having both feet on the ground, showing up as who you are, and so that people can connect with you and you connect to people, and trust is established. We all feel drawn towards people who we deem authentic. Like, this guy is genuine and I can trust him or her that they're going to tell the truth because they're just being true to themselves and to me as well. The problem with authenticity is that it also comes with vulnerability. Because if you show up as who you are and you put away the protective armor that protects you from potential, attacks or pain or whatever, you're vulnerable. And that comes with it. That's the price to pay. However, the value you get from it is true interpersonal connection and trust. And that's a game changer. That's when the magic happens, right?
Yeah.
So, authenticity, absolute key. And that's why also the longer I do what I do, the more I realize time and again that leadership development is, more than anything, personality development. Like, I as a leader, I as a manager, I have to develop into and grow into who I really am. So I can show who I really am. Means I have to feel comfortable with myself in my own company. So I can show up as who I am and feel good about it, right? And not anxious or insecure. So it all starts with the relationship you have with yourself. Do you even accept yourself as who you are, right? So that's where the journey starts. Because only when you're in a good relationship, in a good contact with yourself, in a good balance, can you open up to others and also accept them for who they are. And there's this principle of reciprocity, right? That says we tend to mirror back the behavior we are being given by others. And based on that, someone who's really genuine and authentic almost unconsciously invites others to open up as well and show more of who they are and show their true colors. So there's a ripple effect of that that can cause really amazing things to happen.
I'm going to quote my pastor here. It's funny because, I live in rural Montana, but the same things that we learn on church on Sunday are the same things that we learn in business that make sense. And this is what he said literally yesterday. Help others, be authentic, help others at work, because by helping them, elevating them, in turn, your numbers will go up because everybody builds that community of helping one another. Yeah. And here's the trick. If you're listening to this show right now, okay, listen to what Thomas is saying and apply it to your heart. That's the problem with us. We hear it in our heads, in our ears, but we don't apply it to our heart and then our actions. We're talking about a difference of 12 inches here, right? From your head to your heart to applying it. And it's just, what I love about your principles, Thomas, is that we just have to remind people they're not that hard. They just have to be done.
Yes, exactly. And that's the other word that you mentioned a moment ago, together with authenticity, consciousness. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with only understanding it in your mind first, because that's where it starts. You have to first grasp the idea and say, oh, okay, this could work. I can imagine that this could work. It might take some courage, but yeah, I understand what they mean. And then once you're aware of it, you can start making it practical. Mm-hmm. And this is not done in one huge leap. People would probably come to you and say, hey, what happened to you? Like your colleague who called you. What happened? Did you attend a training or what? No, it's about baby steps. Right. Baby steps. Like, how can I, or where could I open up a little bit more and show a bit more of myself and how I feel about something, for example, in a safe environment, low risk environment with people I trust, people who know me, etc., etc. And there you like a little experiment, right? You start testing the water to see, okay, well, I can admit that I don't know something, even though I'm the manager. And it seems to be safe. I might even go as far as telling my team, hey guys, I made a mistake. I think I made a wrong decision here. Now we have a situation that we need to resolve. Let's think together. I mean, this is highly authentic. It is also vulnerable, of course, because the manager admits that he or she made a mistake. Yes, of course, because guess what happens to credibility, trust, and acceptance by the team? They all go through the roof. By doing something that at first glance may look like a weakness. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's about, a paradigm shift. Sure. Being yourself is not a weakness. It's the biggest strength you have. Doing the exact opposite of what you think you need to be doing intuitively, right? Instead of trying to be the strong person all the time, show some weakness, show some honesty and some authenticity. I was wrong. Let's make it better. The last thing that the pastor said yesterday, I love this. And I'm sure you would agree with this. This type of mindset not only can change the workforce or your home, but this changes communities. When you start being that authentic self, willing to help people and lift them up, right? And admitting, hey, I was wrong, whatever that looks like, right? We really can have a heart of change. And I love this conversation. So thank you for what you're doing in your coaching. Something else I picked up on is the ability to build or foster a resilient environment. Yeah. We got through COVID, and I think some people struggled, some people thrived. But when we look towards the future, how do we build a resilient environment so that we can get through our challenges with strength? Well, resilience per definition means the ability to bounce under pressure, to be elastic, to bow, and not break, and then bounce back into the original state after the increased stress or pressure has gone. It originates from physics, actually. And in psychology, it's the same thing. The ability of a person to not break under stress, but be elastic, right? Mm-hmm. So resilience, of course, is key, because it's the higher your resilience, the higher your ability to cope with stress and adversity, of which we had enough those past few years. And it's not really getting so much better, is my impression. So if you look it up a little bit in the media, you'll see that many sources say that mental health is going to be the thing that's going to be on our agenda for the next decade, just because of all the adversity that came with the challenges of the last few years. So how do we build a culture or foster a culture of resilience? Well, by strengthening the individual, helping people to become more resilient, by creating a climate of safety and trust. It's called the climate of psychological safety, right? Where people feel safe enough to show up authentically and be vulnerable and say, I don't know, I need help. Can you help me? Can you support me? I made a mistake, etc. This climate has to be safe, because otherwise, if it's a if it's a climate of psychological threat, where there's like a constant state of alertness and hypervigilance, because nobody, knows when the boss comes in, who will be next. and of course, then the people will tend to, sweep problems under the rug, right? Try to hide them, not to, hoping that nobody will notice. So creating this climate of psychological safety and trust is a leadership task. So it all depends on how managers, leaders react when somebody makes a mistake, which is very human, right? We all make mistakes. And it really starts or depends on the micro reactions. Like when somebody comes to the manager and says, hey, John, I just made a mistake. Will John roll his eyes or not?
Sure.
And even if he rolls his eyes and then he says, okay, it's a learning opportunity, let's see how we can solve it, rolling the eyes was already the killer. It's really this it's a matter of attitude, right?
Sure.
What's your mindset?
Yeah.
So that's how you create a foster or foster a culture of resilience. And the other thing is to just accept that there are natural limitations. The day has 24 hours. We have 2 hands, 1 brain. There's only so much we can do in a day, or one person can do in a day. So often I see that these limitations are just like ignored. And okay, more, burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, it must have been to all kinds of reasons here, probably had private issues as well that led to that, et cetera, trying not to take the responsibility for it. So I think it also is one of the very important aspects of that, respecting the limitations that there are.
When I think about resilience and working as a team, how important that is. We just came off Super Bowl Sunday here in the United States, but and I don't watch sports. I didn't watch the game. I appreciate, people that do. But when I think about those teams though, and their ability to work together, right? To be authentic and conscious and have that leader and work together. I mean, look, if a guy misses a play and the other team's going after the quarterback, it's not like the rest of the team just stands around and watches him get tackled. You watch every single team member go to protect that quarterback, right? Yes. Somebody obviously made a mistake, but they're all intuitively working together, and you think about how many millions of people watched that game. If we exemplified the same thing that those players did in our workplace, imagine how great and resilient we would be as a workforce.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I really love the analogy, because if you look at companies and how the dynamics are in organizations, it sometimes also looks a bit like American football, right?
Sure.
You're being kicked and pushed and you fall and you get up, you dust off, you have to continue.
Oh, you've been to Montana.
Not recently. There's one big difference. If you look at any professional sports or athletes, it's all about performance, right? Same as in the organizations. It's all about performance. But in sports, it seems very logical that after the performance comes the recovery. And the teams have to take some time off to recover. and get a massage and get rest and sleep and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very logical when you think of sports, when you think of companies, organizations, employees, it suddenly doesn't seem so logical that there's a balance between performance and rest and recovery, and performance and rest and digest, and then performance, etc. It's all a matter of balance, and so many things are out of balance, right? Yeah.
I just had another random thought too. Oftentimes we show up to work with a little baggage, whatever happened that morning. The kids were rough getting them to school or whatever, who knows? But it's still an opportunity for us to correct and show up and be our best self at the office. And when you think about the media these days, it's like we know every player's life on that field, right? We know who drives too fast in their car, who's dating who, or what marriage is on the rocks, as they show up to the big game. But when you watch them perform, it's like, wow, clearly they're not fazed by what happens at home. That they showed up to work and be a part of that team. And like I said, I just wish we could exemplify in our daily lives a little bit what we see on TV sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, the other side of what you just said, that people maybe coming to work after already a stressful morning or a very stressful night because the baby didn't sleep, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what I think is very helpful is to always be conscious and aware that we all carry our stories.
Sure.
Everybody carries their stories, and we always only see the face, the facade. We don't see what's behind. And if somebody shows up a bit tense, or maybe with a sad look on their face that we interpret as angry, but it's sadness, we don't know, right? We should really refrain from judging too fast, because maybe they just got a diagnosis, or somebody in their family just had major issues. We don't know. So kindness should be at the heart of all interactions with everyone. Just come from from an attitude of kindness, because you never know what somebody's been through.
Yeah. Well, I love going through the essential skills because they're important. Right.
Yeah.
Thomas, talk to us about your book real quick before you wrap this thing up. I know you've got a book out, and I'm sure we get more of this, but I'd love for people to know about it so they can pick it up.
Yeah, the book title is Breakthrough. And in the book, I talk about all these essential skills and how to develop them and how important they are, basically what we just discussed, and some more. And what I do in the book is I use my experience in the airline industry, working as an cabin in-flight manager, as a threat, as a metaphor, right? Through the book, with some examples of situations that happened on the planes that also can be transferred to other enterprises, other companies, that happen on a daily basis at the office or other circumstances as well.
All right. I decided I do have one more question for you. You touched on it briefly, but you said you spent a little time in the circus, right?
Yeah. what
did that look like, and what did you learn?
Yeah, so I can tell you up front, I was not the clown. I just didn't know what to do with my life. Really.
Yeah. And
then there was this little ad in the newspaper. We had newspapers made of paper at that time.
What year was that?
and so I saw this little ad, and it said, Circus Viva, that was the name of the circus, looking for a press spokesperson. And I thought, I can do that. So I called them, and next day I drove. They were already on tour, so I drove an hour or two to meet them, have a conversation, and 3 weeks later I moved into my trailer. And then practically what I did was everything else you do when you work at the circus, besides also doing the media work and the press work.
Of course.
Yeah. So it was good for me. It did me really well, because I learned to work with my two hands there, like really doing the hard lifting, and hard labor. That was good for me. It helped me also develop.
It's amazing. My story's colorful like yours, with all these different things in your background. But some of the best things that you learn in life come from the most random set of circumstances. And I always tell people, just enjoy the ride.
Yes.
Don't get down on yourself because you're working at the circus or whatever that might be. Like learn something, enjoy the ride, and come out the other side a better person.
Exactly. And my mantra that really helps me relax into any circumstance and relax into my life is that I'm convinced that everything's working out for me.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. And in retrospect, in hindsight, it did. Everything, even the most sad things or difficult situations or phases I went through, in the end, they got me where I am today. The airline in 2001, shortly after 9/11, grounded completely. End of story. It was terrible. It was a disaster, actually a national disaster, but for everyone who worked there, a personal disaster. Today, looking back, it was a great opportunity for me. It was a jumping board that got me into the career that I'm now in for more than 20 years. So you never know what something is going to be good for. So trust. I think trust again is the word, that things will turn out well. If you look at them in 1 year or two, looking back, you'll understand how and you'll understand why. You may not now. So trust. Yeah.
I love it. There's a game that people play to get to know one another. It's like, guess the thing that's not true about this person, and it's like, okay, Thomas, he was a public speaker, a business coach, an architect, and worked in the circus. Everybody's going to say he didn't work in the circus. He'd win every time.
You see, and the architect is wrong.
That's right.
Here we go.
I love it. Well, listen, thank you for your time. Appreciate you, as they say, calling in from over the pond, right? And imparting some of your wisdom. And we're just grateful for you. So thanks for that. Thanks for your book. We're going to post in the show notes the book title where people can get it. So really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure to be talking to you. Yeah.
Hey, if you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. Reach out. We'd love to hear your questions, comments, and if you've got a recommendation, I'll take that as well. Thanks. This has been the Answer is Yes podcast. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.